Welcome back to Instagram vs. Reality, the segment on the channel where we call out bad Photoshop practices and impossible beauty standards with science or just basic common sense. As always, these videos are intended to be informative and are not aimed to target or slander anyone's brand. This week's submissions are from r/Instagram Reality. For our first picture, we have an example of bad editing by improperly balancing the light reflections. There are a lot of things wrong with this picture. Her skin is way too perfect without any of the surface imperfections. Her nose has no definition whatsoever, as all of the shadows have been brightened out of the picture, and on top of all of that, she has digital makeup plastered on her face, which makes it look even less real. Even though there are plenty of mistakes in the editing, the most obvious one is the light reflecting on her skin. It's so harsh that it makes her look like she has horns sticking out of her face. We could have let this go if it was someone who edited the picture on their phone or didn't know exactly how to do it correctly, but this picture has been taken by someone who at least knows what they're doing, as you can see from the ring light reflection in her eyes, and from her attire, we would guess that it's most likely a wedding photo shoot. The ring light should have been diffused, or better yet, a studio production would rather use a softbox lighting setup, as that provides a more consistent flood of light, rather than the concentrated beam that you get from a ring light, which is a much more amateur setup. To fix this, we're going to use frequency separation, which we've talked about in our previous videos. Frequency separation is the process of setting the two parts of an image aside, the color and the texture, to edit each individually. We're going to be working on the color layer first. Run the frequency separation action to create a new layer between the high frequency and the low frequency layers. For those of you who are unfamiliar with actions in Photoshop, these are just saved instructions or macros that do the nitty-gritty work for us in one click, and you could download your own online. This allows us to then paint with a color that's sampled from her skin to smooth out the harsh highlights. We're going to also use a selection with about 10 pixels of feathering and blur the color layer with the selection that's made from the lasso tool. You can see that with just a simple adjustment, the picture does look a lot less harsh. Moving on, we have a fitness model here, but as you can clearly see by the bendy lines in the background, that these are not her real gains, but actually Adobe gains. It's likely that she's done this edit on her phone, because while the amount of distortion is subtle, a large area is affected each time, almost the size of a finger on a phone screen. It's disappointing that as a fitness model preaching healthy gains, she felt the need to risk it all for such a minor improvement, and we see this time and time again every week. To correct this, we're using the trusty liquify tool to bring the lines back to where they belong. Again, there is only a minor difference between the before and the after, like a lot of the pictures we've showed in our previous videos. I'm going to let you in on a big secret here. For this example, using our corrected version, I can modify her body however it needs to be, and then just use the reconstruct tool on the liquify toolbar to correct the bendy lines. This essentially undoes the distortion that you've applied, so you get the benefits of using a big brush and maintaining a smooth, consistent contour, and the benefits of a small brush that selectively undoes the regions that you do not want to disturb. If you properly understand how to use the tools at your disposal, this is a big game changer, as now her butt is 20% bigger, but the lines are straight. Thankfully, most fitness influencers do not watch our videos, so they'll keep making the same mistakes, and we'll have content for next week. We have another bad marketing Photoshop, and again, like our previous example, it's another case of not understanding how light works. Since the highlights and the shadows have been flattened on her upper eyelid, it makes it look like she doesn't have an eyeball. No matter what brand of eyeshadow you use, it's not going to change how light bounces off your eyelids. As you can see in these examples, they have prominent highlights in the middle and shadows on the sides, and that gives our eyelids depth caused by the eyeball. To fix this, we can use a lighter shade of her skin color to paint in the highlights and then shadows to blur both of the layers together. After lowering the opacity, you can see that it looks like she actually has an eyeball now. This next picture is disappointing on so many levels. We talk about beauty standards on our channel and how different cultures geographically have different beauty standards. This is an example from India, where having fair skin is a prevalent beauty standard, and it's apparent everywhere from models to Bollywood actors, who endorse skin bleaching cosmetics that gives you fair skin. There's even light bulbs that can make your skin color lighter. It sounds bizarre, but we did the research and apparently it's a real thing. I don't know how it works, but somebody let me know in the comments. This is one of those pictures where you can spot the mistake from light years away. He's cropped the picture to avoid painting the details on his hands, which is a very tedious task. And so it's easier to only work on the face since there's already some information there. He's also bumped up the brightness and the contrast, painted out the eyes and eyebrows, and used a grey colour to paint in the beard. If you zoom in, you can see that these are not actual hair strands, but rather a blob of greyish black colour that was painted on his face. Now, let's talk about how it should have been edited. Considering it's a very dimly lit picture, and probably taken on a phone, there's not enough information present to do much here anyway. The only thing that we can do is bring up the curves in the midtone with the midpoint to bump up the exposure. This is obviously going to be too much, but we can mask in the parts that we need and then drop the opacity just a bit. This is what retouching is all about. It's about removing the little imperfections and fixing minor issues like flyaway hairs, blemishes and color grading, not changing the entire look and personality of the subject. This is another liquefy fail, and you can tell by the distorted cupboard in the background and the bent handles of the cupboard itself, which follow the contours of her body. We cover examples like this on our channel all the time, and the remedy is always the same, the liquefy tool. We can straighten out the lines, push the pixels back to their original position, and you can see that it's not too different from the original, so it's just one of those unnecessary edits. The only good thing about this picture is that they've left the rest of the picture untouched, which shows how you're supposed to actually edit a picture in the first place. They've kept her knees intact because there's another trend going on where people tend to get rid of the knee creases, making them smooth and colorless like giant hot dogs. This is actually one of the best edits I've seen so far. She's done two things with this picture. She's changed the background and reduced her waist size. If it wasn't for the unnaturally sized waist, I doubt that you would be able to tell that this picture is edited upon first glance. We're going to use a black and white check layer to spot the editing mistakes. As you can see, her trousers and her hair are way darker than they're supposed to be. The hair above her hand is also too light, and there are no light sources on that side of the picture since the sun is on the left side. Now the contrast can easily be fixed by using either a brightness or contrast layer or a levels adjustment. With these we can bring the black point down and use a layer mask to paint in the parts that are required, which in this case are her trousers and her hair. With only that small adjustment, you can already see that it looks much more cohesive as the foreground and background now share the same contrast. This picture is very suspicious though, as her body perspective gives the background away as being edited in. It's an odd camera angle to take a picture from, and it's just way too big. For the waist, we're going to use the liquefy tool again to bring her body back to a natural size. So this next picture is of our favorite family, the Kardashians. This time it's a nice family photo, or well, maybe not a family photo, because some of them are not really present in this picture, and those who aren't actually there either. This is similar to our previous example, as you can see the contrast differences. Courtney has way less contrast than the rest of this picture, like the black shadows on her hair and her shoes. We can check that by using a black and white adjustment layer, and you can clearly see the blacks on her hair don't match with the rest of this picture, or even her jacket. To make her look like she's actually there, we're using the same technique that we've used in our previous example, but instead of decreasing the contrast, we're going to increase it. Finally, we're going to drop the opacity down to match with the rest of the picture. Now, there is one thing that I missed before, and it was her shoes. They have no contact shadows, which solidifies the fact that Courtney is probably not present in this picture, but was photoshopped in later on. I generally don't believe that this photo is entirely real, and the Kardashians actually made this big of a blunder. But it popped up on the r/Instagram reality subreddit, and I think it's a good teaching moment anyway. Another thing that we noticed is this weird halo or rim light around her head, which happens when you don't mask the subject properly. It shouldn't have been a problem here because she doesn't have frizzy hair, and it's a very easy selection that you can make, but they've missed the rest of the mistakes, so it's probably an avant-garde art piece at this point. So this voiceover was recorded, and it turns out that Kim did actually post this, finally proving once and for all that the Kardashians must truly think that their audience is just downright stupid. E-Online quotes a mysterious source close to the family, citing that Kourtney was indeed there at the photo, but considering the lack of shadows, mismatched contrast, and the sole fact that they've been caught editing their photos for the last 10 episodes we've made, I'm going to say that this was definitely edited in. It also explains why Scott doesn't have his arms around her, because none of these three, or so I think, are actually here in the photo. When you zoom into Kendall's arm, the shadow cast is also very dark and unnatural, so I'm going to say that this is indeed edited. To fix the shadows, we're going to grab a brush and pick a darker color from the picture, paint the shadows under her shoes, and then change the blending mode to darken and blur it. As you can see when you zoom out, it's not that noticeable anymore, but it does make a subtle difference, and in turn, it makes it a little bit more believable. Quite honestly, I don't know how you can improve this picture. It's just too strange for me to comprehend. This final picture that we're going to look at for today is one of those weird Kardashian edits that we've covered in a previous video too. Here they've photoshopped the strap of Kendall Jenner's dress, which you can see it goes up from here, it then fades into her skin, then comes back but near her neck. I've known better not to question why the Kardashians do what they do, but let's move on to fixing it. We need to select the dress strap, which you can do in a number of ways, but we're going to use color range to select it. We're going to duplicate it onto a new layer and move it to the position where we need it to be, and we may have to distort it to fit the original position. Remove the original strap by using either the clone stamp tool, healing brush, or the patch tool. Finally, the strap is where it should have been and not where it was weirdly pasted. I'd love some explanation or backstory to this photo in the comments below. That brings another episode to a close. Hopefully you've learned something about Photoshop techniques. We've covered everything here in a previous video somewhere along in the series, so it's recommended to watch most of it to get up to date. I encourage you to follow us on Instagram, where we post quality morphs and before and afters of the examples used here, so you can see them for yourself up close. As always, if you're enjoying the content on the channel, you can really support us by subscribing and click the notification bell to catch future episodes.